Hi there, welcome along to Repairing Lawnmowers for Profit. In this video we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to take a look at this petrol lawnmower behind me and we're going to look at some reasons why this lawnmower, or any other lawnmower for that matter, won't start. Now if you think you've got fuel and spark and compression, all the usual three things that you need to get a petrol lawnmower up and running, and it's still not starting, this could be the video for you. So stay tuned and let's get started right now. If this is your first time on Repairing Lawnmowers for Profit YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe and tick the bell notification icon, and that way you won't miss a thing and it will update you on every video that I bring out, and best of all, it's completely free. So there are lots of videos on YouTube showing you what to do if your petrol lawnmower won't start, and we'll cover them very quickly, but I want to show you some different things and try and help you get a lawnmower running that won't start and you've checked all the basic things. So what you really need to do, really self-explanatory of course, make sure you've got some fuel in your mower. You can see there. And if you've got this type of mower with this push prime carb on here, if you just take the air filter box off, as I've done here with a flat-headed screwdriver, you can actually prime it. You can actually see you've got fuel going through there, and a lot of people don't realise that you can actually visually see if there's any fuel going on there, and that just eliminates any problem that we might have with this primer bulb. The next thing that's really simple to check as well is the spark. What you want to do with this is you can just unscrew the spark plug and leave it connected here. Just put it against something metal and see if you get a spark. And if you can't see properly, you can actually buy a spark plug tester. In fact, I'll link to a spark plug tester below this video in the description. Take a look there. Basically, once you clamp this handle here, which releases this brake, which is something else we're going to talk about in a minute, you can test this. You can pull it over and you put your spark plug tester on, and you can actually see if you've got a spark. If you've got a spark, it'll light up. So there'll be a link to a spark plug tester in the description below this video. The next thing that most people will tell you to check for, which is correct, is to check you've got some compression. So basically, if you pull this over and it feels like it pulls over okay, it's not too easy to pull over, it doesn't feel like it's broken inside, you will have compression. You'd be very unlucky if you didn't have compression, and those are the three basic things that people check. But unfortunately, I get a lot of comments on my channel now saying, I've done the basic things, I've checked the plug, I know it's getting fuel on it, and I've got all these things working correctly. What are the other reasons that this lawnmower won't start? Well, I'm going to cover a few of those right now. There are two different types of starting mechanisms on these mowers that I regularly come across. One of them is this type here. This actually has a brake here. I'm going to show you inside here. I'm going to show you this kill switch, because if it doesn't disengage, it won't let your lawnmower get spark. So this is going to be definitely something to check for. And this just releases on this model by pulling this handle here. You can see how it pulls backwards and forwards. Now on a lawnmower such as a Honda one, this is usually a micro switch, which is usually around this area, and you'd have to strip a few covers off. But with the micro switch, if you don't hear it clicking, that's what stops you getting spark. So if you've got one that's got a micro switch on, make sure it at least clicks when you pull the lever at the top of the handle. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take a few parts off this. I'm just going to take this cover off here, I'm going to take this starter recoil off, I'm going to show you the kill switch as well at the back, and I'm going to show you what to look for to make sure it's working correctly. So I'm going to strip this lawnmower down, I'll put this on time lapse, and I'll see you again in a minute. So what you can see now, we've removed a few parts. You can see this here, this is a kill switch here, and this needs to be working properly to enable your lawnmower to get spark or disengage it. And the way this works on this model is you pull the handle, as I was showing you before, and it moves this brake out of the way. You can see the brake releasing there, and there should be a definite disconnection there between that switch and the brake. So on this lawnmower it looks like everything's working okay. It wants cleaning up, and this little wire here, this is the wire that runs all the way around here. It runs right around the side and actually runs into this ignition coil. I get a lot of questions about ignition coil, saying could it be the ignition coil? Could this be the reason my lawnmower won't start? Well, I've done probably thousands of these now, and I've never ever had one with the ignition coil that doesn't work. But one reason I've found with these, they will stop your lawnmower working properly and starting properly if this wire gets damaged. Because this wire that runs around here runs right round the back, and I showed you it goes to the kill switch, and you can see it just connects up at the top there. I've seen these when people have had a mess about and taken the cover off and actually put the starter recoil cover back on and either snapped it or damaged it. So if your lawnmower won't start and you've done the usual things, here's two things to check. You need to make sure that this kill switch is clean and this brake's actually moving out of the way correctly and there's not a problem with this cable. You need to make sure this wire doesn't have a split in it, or it hasn't actually pulled off this switch here and you need to make sure that it's connected under this ignition coil properly. While I'm just stripping this lawnmower down, I'll remove this ignition coil. If you look in the top right hand corner of your screen now, there'll be a card to how to set this ignition coil, and you can see how to do that. But for now I'm going to take it off and turn it over and show you just how this wire that runs right around here connects up to the bottom of this ignition coil. I'll just mention this as well as I do on most of my videos. Whatever you're doing on a lawnmower, even if you're not working underneath it, it's always a good idea to just remove the spark plug. Now all you need to do to remove this ignition coil, just get yourself a 1/4 inch socket, and we'll put that on. It's basically just take these two bolts out and we can move this out of the way. This is the governor flap assembly for anybody who doesn't know. We'll remove these parts, put them in my metal tray so I don't lose any of them, and I'll show you underneath this ignition coil and exactly where this wire connects to. So if I move this governor flap out of the way without disturbing any of these spring linkages on this carburetor, you'll actually see that I've got this ignition coil here, and this wire, really easy to connect. It just pushes on from underneath. That's all you need to do if you want to replace this wire from this ignition coil. So if you're having trouble starting your lawnmower, I would suggest having a good look at this wire, and definitely a good look at the kill switch. Now I've had loads and loads of these types of lawnmowers. As you know, over the years I've put loads of videos on here, and a lot of people on YouTube are talking about three things. They're talking about getting fuel, getting spark, and also having compression. But the fourth thing that I think is a massive thing to look at is timing. If this lawnmower doesn't spark at the correct time, you'll have fuel going into the mower exactly as it should, you'll have spark exactly as you should, and you'll have compression exactly as you should. But if everything's at the wrong timing, it'll spark at the wrong time and this lawnmower won't start. I'm going to show you in the next clip how to check the timing on this petrol lawnmower. So to check the timing on this petrol lawnmower, what I'm going to need to do is remove this flywheel. Now I have an impact tool now for this. I can just zip this top nut off here and get this flywheel off. If you can't do that, if you don't have this equipment, maybe even take it to somebody who's got the equipment, ask them to take it off for you, like a local car garage. Sometimes happy to do that for a few pound. If not, what you can do is put a piece of wood under the blade that stops it all turning, and you can actually get your socket on here and undo it. But it's a bit of a faffy job. I do recommend doing this with an impact tool. So I'm just going to remove this nut now with this impact tool. It should zip this straight off, which is really handy to have. As you can see there, that's how simple it is with the right tools. So we'll just remove this top part here. That just lifts off. What I generally do here, just have a look round. I'm going to show you in here, and you can have a quick look down the top and just make sure this flywheel key hasn't actually totally sheared. So looking down from the top of this crankshaft here, you can actually see here, this is where the flywheel key sits, and if this is damaged in any way, it has a knock-on effect over the whole timing of this flywheel, because this flywheel's got magnets on it, as you can see on the way around, and this is what makes the spark actually come through this ignition coil. Now if this is slightly out and this key's just slightly knocked, it only takes the timing to be in just the wrong place and it'll spark at the wrong time, and you'll have fuel and spark and compression, but it won't run because you won't have the correct timing. Now to check this flywheel key properly, the best way to do it is to take this flywheel off itself. Now this can be a bit of a fiddly job if you haven't got a flywheel puller. What you do is you can put a puller in here and basically just pull up, what a lot of people do, and it's not the best practice to do it, is basically they just tap it from underneath. If you've got a rubber mallet and they're just knocking round it. And I've also seen people just get this nut here and put this back on here and actually tap it from the top. If you're going to do that, which I wouldn't recommend doing, it's not the right way to do it. If you are going to do that, just be very careful, because if you ruin the threads on this crankshaft, you might as well say bye to the lawnmower really, because you're not going to get this back on. You're certainly not going to want to go to the trouble really of removing all this crankshaft right from through this engine. So just be very careful what you're hitting. The best way to do this, of course, is with the right tool, which will be with a flywheel puller. So once you've got this flywheel removed now, as I've got off here, what you want to do is just look at this key here. If it looks like it's been knocked across or it's not a perfect shape in any way, you want to replace this, because this looks like a small part, but this is crucial to the timing of this petrol lawnmower. Just take the flywheel off there. This actually sits in here on the crankshaft, as you can see, just slides down here, and everything needs to be perfect with that. So this massively affects the timing on a petrol lawnmower, and as I've said, if you're not getting it timed properly and it's not sparking properly, it won't start. So I'm happy with that, that looks okay. What I'm going to do now is just slide this back in the crankshaft and refit this flywheel. Now over the years I've used lots of different flywheel pullers. I even bought a Briggs & Stratton one, and that lasted about 3 times before it actually broke. It was pretty useless really. If anyone has a good recommendation for a flywheel puller for this type of engine, for a Briggs & Stratton mower, or something that's a little bit more versatile, I can move about and put in slightly different places to accommodate the different flywheel sizes, just leave a comment for me in the comment section. I'll have a look at anybody's recommendations to a really good flywheel puller. Just one more thing to mention as well, just before you take this flywheel off, it's pretty obvious sometimes if these keyways have been smashed, because you'll see if I move it across there, you end up with it kind of across and everything's not lined up. and that's just one sort of classic example of seeing if a lawnmower's had a smack underneath. What normally happens with that is if it's off centre is the blades actually hit something like a drain cover or a tree stump and it throws the timing off. The idea of having that keyway is just to stop this crankshaft bending. Now if you've been really unlucky, like I have on one of my really early videos, you'll actually have a stuck valve, and this has only happened to me once or twice because it's actually come out the valve seat. And to get to these valves, what we're going to do is just take the head of this mower off. I'm just going to take this control arm off here just using this impact tool. What we're going to do is we're going to go diagonally across as well. We're not going to go around to take these off. We'll try and work in some form of diagonal pattern. So with all those out of the way, we can just remove the head. Just one. Spot the deliberate mistake, yeah? Ah no, I can hear you laughing, you're alright. There we go. Now, with all these removed, should be able to remove the head off this lawnmower. We can take a look at these valves. You can probably see there's quite a lot of carbon build-up on there, but I just want to show you something. When you turn this flywheel at the top, you can see this flywheel just at the top of your picture there, it's just turning. This just opens and closes these valves, the exhaust valve and the inlet valve, and they're both moving okay. But occasionally I've had lawnmowers where the actual valve guide on the outside is actually popped out and these valves actually don't go in and out fully. They kind of get stuck, so either the exhaust or the inlet valve just stays open no matter how much you're turning this flywheel. So you can probably see what I'm doing a bit better there. As I turn the flywheel, you can see these valves opening and closing properly. But going back to what I said at the beginning of this video, you could have fuel going through correctly, you could have spark and you could have compression. But if these valve guides that sit around the edge of this valve have popped out and these valves aren't moving in and out freely, you won't get proper compression and this lawnmower won't start. One big important thing to mention that's really simple: buy decent spark plugs. I buy these NGK B2LMs for this type of mower, this Briggs & Stratton one. I bought B&Q's own brand mate before when I first started doing this, and they were brand new and mowers would not run. These are the best ones. I've had no problems with these whatsoever, and I certainly won't scrimp on buying these NGK spark plugs. And I must have had about 50 lawnmowers over the last 7 or 8 years that won't start simply because they need a new plug. So I hope these few tips have helped you out if you have a lawnmower that won't start at all. Now if you've got a lawnmower that starts and dies or revs up and down or just generally runs badly or puffs out black or white smoke, that can be a whole separate issue altogether. And we're actually going to put a card in this top right hand corner of how to change the diaphragm and gasket on this type of Briggs & Stratton petrol lawnmower. This cures 90% of all Briggs & Stratton running problems on this 3.5 classic type of engine. So take a look in that card at the top. As you can see now, don't adjust the governor springs either. The little springs that are near the carburettor, if it's running rough, it'll be nothing to do with them, I promise you, unless they're actually missing or they're incorrect. Take a look at that video as well if you've got one that's running badly, and that should help you out. Do me a massive favour, if this video has helped you out at all and you're just feeling in a great mood, hit the subscribe button and click like for me. That'll do me a massive favour, and it will help anybody on YouTube who's looking to repair their own lawnmower or help them if they've got a lawnmower that won't start. Thanks for watching. I will see you again next time.